of our military here in Massachusetts. Thank you.
So I think this time I'll jump in. Look, I think they're terrific candidates, and so I'm not going to diminish anyone else's qualifications. I don't think that's necessary. I think as voters making their choice, they're going to figure out what they value. But I would take exception, since I did help author legislation as part of the Patrick administration. I helped draft and develop programs, as well as also develop guidelines that help us to implement manufacturing, workforce development, entrepreneurship and innovation initiatives throughout the state. So I think I bring a very significant amount of experience on Beacon Hill and know the legislature and know how programs run, how they get things done. But frankly, as proud as I am of that, I think frankly I also have a good grasp of our towns, of the hard issues that are here, and I think I can bring that to it as well.
So I appreciate the question. I think what differentiates me is the breadth of my experience. It's very hard in sound bites and in a 2-minute introduction to let you know the wide variety of jobs that I've held, the numbers of children that I've coached, the professional choices I've had to make, and whether it's renewable energy projects, conservation projects, economic development. I was an artist in undergraduate. I'm hoping that through the course of the campaign, I can let you know all the relatively, seemingly random pieces about myself that as a package, I think I bring a huge diversity to the role, and I think I could fight for any constituency and any group in this region on a variety of topics.
I'm enthusiastic about town meeting. I think that I learned so much, and I mention it because this is where you get to hear other people's values, their principles, some of their experiences. And that's a forum where you get to know people and get to know that there are, seniors here, there are young people vying for government that works. And I'm that candidate that is about the people and is about bringing the voices of the people to the State House. I've been on the other side of the table lobbying for a wide variety of bills, from criminal justice to education to a broad, range of civil liberties issues and including privacy and technology. So I think that the breadth and the depth that I bring in terms of my life experiences differentiates me. I lived in Laos. I lived in a country where it's a country where it's most heavily bombed. It was defoliated, right? So I know from a very innate ground level how important the environment is and why we need to preserve our natural resources, why we need to go green, why we need to be less reliant on dead energy, on oil, and why we need to help folks protect their property, their land from encroaching entities like fracking and all of that. So I'm passionate about people's interest, and I hope that you will vote for a candidate that can listen to your values and bring it to the State House. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not exactly sure, since I don't know everybody's history here. I just can say that I've, as a union activist, as a labor activist for 25 years, and as the person who in every local that I've been in who seems to be willing to be, is the only person who seems to be willing to be the grievance officer, I'm a person who's actually dealt with an awful lot of conflict. I've had to represent people who feel very hurt that their rights as workers have been violated, And so I have to work them through that process. I've had to assess the validity of their claim, and most of the time it's very valid. And I've had to represent them. And I've had to represent them at the same time in meetings where they're facing off with their supervisors. And I've also had to represent them at the negotiating table and have the burden of sitting with a few others and hammering out in a not necessarily very nice situation. If you know much about the way public schools have been underfunded for the last 15 years, I've had to, every 3 years, represent workers at the negotiating table, trying to represent their best interests, and then coming back and trying to convince them that this took a long time, but we think this is the best package. And if you don't, tell me. We're going to go back. We've had contracts that have been turned down, and we've had to go back and renegotiate them.
Thank you for the question. I agree. There's a wonderful sense of agreement here. The difference that I see for me is that I am young and energetic, and I'm going to get things done now. I have experience in working in the White House, working in Congress, working in the Massachusetts and Rhode Island legislatures. I wrote school committee policy that passed. I lobbied for bills that have passed. I have created bills that are just started but are moving forward faster than most legislation does. So I know how to get things done in the legislature, and yet I come at it from this perspective of being an outsider, being a millennial, and I can see the ways that we can push more bold legislation, system-level changes that we need. We can really think big here. We can really push the bolder ideas. And I've seen young people be effective. I worked with someone who was elected 2 years out of college in Rhode Island and came in his first 6 months, got an increase for the minimum wage of tipped workers, and he's our champion for the carbon pricing bill that I wrote in Rhode Island. Young people can be very effective in getting things done in the short term and working for longer term change in the legislature, and I will do that for you.
Thank you to the panelists, and thank you very much for your cooperative and conciliatory approach to one another, something we're not seeing on the national level. Very much appreciated. I'm hearing a lot from all of you tonight, and it was quite an education about growth in our communities. Well, we want growth, we want jobs. But I landed here in 1979 at this university, and it was beautiful, and I wanted to stay that way. So I would like to hear from you what you have done or intending to do to keep the beautiful valley from growing too much, preserving the land, keeping the landscape in our community. Thank you.
I think it's an important question. Change has been discussed a lot here in town lately and in the region. And I think in order to preserve and protect what we love about the valley, it's important to figure out where the growth should go, because we do need the growth to diversify our tax base and to house the many people that are not housed currently and create the economic infrastructure that we need. I think the town's master plan, the university's master plan, and the regional master plans have dedicated looking at growth in the centers where growth already is and expanding that, and in the flip side of that, making sure that our farmland and our natural resources have been protected. I was part of a project a few years ago to preserve over 3,000 acres in Leverett and Shutesbury as public property that could be, those trees are now saved permanently so that carbon is being sequestered there and the public can walk there. And that's a mountain that is now permanently protected. And that's the kind of thing we have to balance that with providing the growth where it needs to happen, which is in our village centers, in our urban cores. It means rebuilding some of those historic buildings, so there's difficult choices to be made there, but we have to think about the growth so that we can balance protecting all the other things that we really love about the valley.
So it's interesting that Sarah brings up Brushy Mountain, because we're both involved in different aspects of that project. I'm a land title examiner, and that's what my business does. I do real estate title examinations, and I spent 3 months full-time researching more than, I don't know, it's like 200 parcels of land. And from that, I have a large network of resources from people in Fish and Wildlife and Department of Conservation and Department of Agriculture. These are all my clients. I preserve the farmland here in Amherst. I have helped preserve every little woodlot along the Holyoke Range. So I've been actively working for 20 years on preserving our landscape here in the 3rd District, and really actually throughout Central and the Berkshire County. So it's a very important issue for me, and I will work as the legislator to make sure that there is continued funding for preservation of land and historic tax credits, anything that we can do to preserve this is what everybody comes to Amherst and the Pioneer Valley for, is its beauty. And, you know, I've been in part of that role in preserving it, and I will continue to be an advocate for our valley. Thank you.
I'd like to offer that small schools is part of our values as a community, and as a school committee member, I'm on the record for supporting small schools. I think that that's the type of courage that people want, someone who can articulate the values, convey that in a deliberatory manner, and while you may be outvoted, you may be the dissenting opinion, I think it's important to be able to have someone who has that type of courage to speak the values of the community. People come and live here because they're thinking about the schools, they're thinking about walking their kids, biking to school, and that's the type of neighborhood that I'd like to preserve.
So, a number of years ago, around 10, a little less than 10 years ago, I was one of the chairs, I have to put it that way because this is one of the chairs sitting back there, of the Comprehensive Planning Commission in the town of Amherst to develop the town's master plan, working with wonderful people in the town of Amherst, like Nancy LaCour. And the tension that exists in that document between historic preservation, open space preservation, ecological goods and biodiversity, as well as also development, I think really do a wonderful job of reflecting the different values that we have in this particular town. I realize, I'm sure Pelham and Granby, they also share those values as well. And I think, frankly, we have to keep those values in mind as we work through thinking about new projects in the town and development and the pattern of growth that's chosen. I'd reinforce what Sarah said, that at least the development pattern that Amherst has chosen has reinforced village centers, bicycle lanes and transit that reduces the traffic on the roads, but also brings people around neighborhood village centers and downtowns. I think what we need to do, so those are good values that then allow to free up the preservation of open space and the preservation of wildlife corridors and fragmented habitat, which I know is one of the goals the town has right now. So what do we need to do? A couple things. One, we need to make sure that we're funding additional acquisition on a state level for conserved land. I think another thing we need to do, again, I mentioned the Land Use Reform Act earlier, that we need to actually have the tools like transfer development rights and an elimination of A&R, approval not required, that goes with towns that have chosen to do good planning and zoning, and there are incentives that go with that. And then frankly, I think the most important thing we need to do is have good conversations with one another that ensure that we're thinking collaboratively and we are embracing the value of each other. So if you're concerned about development and I'm talking about growth, we need to dialogue really well and commit to each other, coming up with plans for any one of our towns that we're proud of and that reflect our mutual values.
So I'll be frank, I have not played a leadership role in this issue that you've asked, because I played a leadership role in education and economic justice issues. But I can say, as a town meeting member, that I have been supportive of the master plan and its implementation, and I was supportive of the rezoning for village centers in order to focus development there and keep less pressure on green space for development.
Actually, the first time I ever did an advocacy project was in 6th grade, and it was a land conservation project. And my commitment to that has stayed the same. A few weeks ago, I was up on the pipeline walk, the anti-pipeline walk up north of us, and I think that it's absolutely critical. We have so much farmland in Granby and Amherst too that we need to be investing in as an economic resource as well as a natural resource in a way that preserves our small town character, preserves our agricultural roots, but also we can grow the number of jobs we have here, the access for people coming into the workforce, be it from less privileged backgrounds or people who come to college here and finding ways that they can actually stay here and get jobs. And so growth does not necessarily, I think people use it to mean not just physical things, but growing access to things and growing, maybe changing or developing is the better words. And I think that there are ways we can push that really well. I talked about clean energy, and I think that that is a really wonderful way we can push economic development in Amherst, Pelham, and Granby without compromising anything that we hold really dear as a community.
Okay, I think we'll take one more question and then we'll give candidates an opportunity to make a closing statement.
I think everybody, I think we know where Solomon stands on this, but could we just hear from you about what you think about carbon fee?
Sorry, what was that?
Carbon tax.
Oh, the carbon tax.
So I'm for any kind of discussion of carbon taxes or credits. Right now, we've been lucky enough to, the state, Commonwealth has been part of the RGGI, the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative. And so we do have in place a carbon credit program. And that is a huge start to this issue of companies that are creating too much emissions, and there is a way for them to pay back. The carbon tax is certainly another approach, and that we certainly need to look forward to making that a reality for the Commonwealth.
Sure. So I support a carbon tax. It's from all the reading, and I haven't done much, but all reading is that it will be probably the single most important tool in addressing climate change.
I support a carbon tax. I think the regional efforts are particularly good. I'd actually like to see more movement nationally. So I think, frankly, if you have a national carbon tax, you're going to reduce the likelihood of any sort of perverse impacts on, disparate impacts on individual states economically. So I'd prefer to advocate for it nationally, but I would definitely support doing anything we can here locally. Beyond that, by the way, since it was an issue that was raised earlier but not addressed, and I think Solomon was talking about this too, I think we need to make sure we do everything we can to support the growth of our solar and wind and industries in the state, innovative clean energy technologies and conservation, and make sure we don't backslide from the progress we've made over the last few years in terms of the feasibility of solar. So I know that that's particularly under threat when bills come out of the legislature.
Yes, to the carbon tax, and also just wanted to give an opportunity to talk about net metering credits as part of the package. As a school committee, we were able to negotiate some credits through the town of Deerfield. And I was the only voice that said, you know, let's wait to hear what Amherst's plan is. And indeed, not too long after, Amherst decided to do a project of our own. And we missed out on that opportunity, but the rush was because the state needs to extend those opportunities for more communities to take advantage of solar power, solar energy.
This is something that we can start in Massachusetts. Massachusetts starts all the big things, from American independence to abolition to healthcare. And this is something we can do. I'm intimately familiar with an economic study that showed just how many thousands of jobs carbon pricing would create for our state. This is actually an economic development, an economic equality bill this bill would give dividends to every Massachusetts resident. And this means that low-income families, though they pay a higher percentage of their income on energy, they pay a lower total amount than richer families. And because everyone's getting an equal amount, this actually would mean that low-income families would get more back in the dividends than they pay, even in the increased costs. And at the same time, we'd be reducing our reliance on imports of fossil fuels. So this is something that is, I'd say it's the second most important thing in solving global warming. The most important thing is developing revolutionary breakthrough clean energy technologies. And that's something Massachusetts can do on our own and can really solve the issue for the entire world.
So the first time that I met Solomon was actually when I was working for Tom Conroy, who was running for state treasurer. And we have a bill which has now become known for promoting the carbon tax credit, and it was the Barrett-Conroy bill. Of course, I was calling it the Conroy-Barrett bill. So I am in favor. I worked to get Tom Conroy. Tried to get him elected, we weren't successful. But supporting great candidates like Tom Conroy, who had that vision, was where I had my input into the environment. I also work for a lot of solar companies. I do their title examinations. I've been involved in making a difference here in the community. What I'm really in favor of expanding solar is saving people money, the clean environment, and the jobs. It is economic development, keeping clean energy, keeping our kids and our loved ones healthy too. We need to get away from the fossil fuels and the pollution that it causes. Thank you.
Okay, I think at this point we'll give the candidates opportunity, maybe 30 seconds or so, to again tell us why you're in it and some concluding remarks. So I guess we can go left to right as we did before. So let's start with you.
So once again, I'd like to thank MassPIRG for organizing this event, as well as express my appreciation to voters here or watching a taped version at some point in the future for taking the time out of your busy evenings or day to listen to all of the Democratic candidates in the Hampshire 3rd District State Representative race. Over the next few months, as you try to decide for whom you are going to cast your ballot for this seat, your decision will have to be based on the characteristics that you want in your state representative. If you want a candidate who has spent 25 years fighting for the rights and well-being of working people, a candidate who will use the skills and experience he has acquired serving as a locally elected official, and most importantly, a candidate whose political GPS is set on economic and social justice, then I respectfully ask for your support and your vote in the Democratic primary election on September 8th.
So thank you very much. I really appreciate the opportunity to come here today and share my views with you and do so with the other candidates. I also appreciate the audience's both deep interest as well as also endurance at this point as we get to the end of the evening. I am deeply passionate about healthy communities, about opportunity, about trying to find ways to revitalize places that are out of the way, forgotten, but places also that have tremendous opportunity to grow, to prosper, and to succeed. Frankly, here in the Pioneer Valley, we have more potential, I think, both for natural beauty, for opportunity, for good growth, and for quality of life that's unmatched any place else. I'm just one voice in this process, but if you look at my entire career, and I hope we have a chance to talk more about it, this is something I've been passionate about, engaged at, from Beacon Hill to this town, and I look forward to talking with you, meeting with you, and adding my voice to this process, and hopefully earning your vote by September 8th. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for coming and listening. and I hope you've learned a lot about us tonight. But whenever I think about why I'm running for office, a face of a young woman I met at the State House comes to mind. Kate was there to tell our legislators her story one day at a hearing about how she was on the verge of losing her home. I saw the frustration and the desperation in her face. I've heard too many stories from people like Kate who've been affected by the mortgage crisis, illegal foreclosures. They bleed the finances of our communities. Kate needs a voice in the legislature, someone with experience and knows how to navigate the legislative process. I want to use my experience of drafting policy and educating other legislators to make people's lives better, especially those of us who are struggling in today's economy. I've talked about my experience and my service to others tonight. I want you to know that I've built both on foundation of integrity. Experience, service, integrity are what I will bring to Beacon Hill. Mark your calendars now, and please vote for me on September 8th. My website is electbonnymccracken.com. Thank you for coming tonight.
Thanks, everybody. I agree with Eric. I appreciate all of you sticking with us, and I hope that many others viewing this will enjoy the debate and the discussion. Although we seem very similar, I think it's a really great opportunity to see the diverse spectrum of this community. Everything's a balance. I've spent my professional life balancing my career, my family, and my volunteer service. I was president of the Hitchcock Center for the Environment Board. I coached hundreds of children. I volunteered in the schools, and I've maintained my career as a natural resource planner and economic development specialist more recently. I think it's important for this district to balance the significant social and environmental needs that we're facing with an honest discussion of the economic development and tax policy that we need. Diversifying our tax base means allowing commercial development. It means allowing some changes to what we think we envision for the future of our communities and this district. My priorities are many and varied, and I think I have an experience that can bring all of these to Boston to help addressing public education, conserving our critical natural and cultural resources, protecting basic human rights, safety in restrooms, Black lives, any lives. We have to be protective of everybody and everyone in our community and maintain and help our economic generators such as the university, the colleges that are in our area. My family and I have committed to renewable energy with solar panels on our home. We live and breathe that in our daily lives. And I just would emphasize that my 25 or so years as a working mother, coach, volunteer, I know how hard it is to balance all these things, and I will work that hard for this district, and I hope that you'll vote for me on September 8th. Thank you.
Thanks for all being here or watching this, and thanks to the other candidates and Professor Robinson for an exciting discussion. We need to think big. I'm running because this election is our opportunity to say, we want to get better support for our community, our colleges, our towns. We want our community to be a leader in Massachusetts. I hope all of you will go out and vote for me on September 8th, and I hope you will all bring your friends and vote. We need everyone engaged. Please check out solomonforrep.org and continue to be involved in this election. Together, we can create a new generation of bold new leaders. Nationally, Democrats in Congress are older on average than Republicans. There's a great generation of older progressive leaders, but there aren't many young politicians coming up. The very youngest state legislators in the country are overwhelmingly Republicans. They invest in the future of their party. We need even more energy to work for systemic change on education, clean energy, and the other critical issues of our time. I hope you will all join me in forming a new generation of political leaders that can move our country more and more towards where it needs to be.
Hi everyone, my name is Vera Delamini Cage, and I'm running for the 3rd Hampshire District State Representative seat because I want to work for you. I want to work for every member of our community. I want to make our government work, our economy work for all. I want a healthcare that's for all. I want education that's for all. And I hope that you will get to know me as your neighbor, as your you know, I started off by saying that this is my home, but this is our homes. And I want us to figure that out together. What makes this community your home? What makes this community my home? Currently, right now, my family live in affordable housing, HAP housing, Butternut Farms apartments. I'm the type of person that can befriend the staunchest antagonist for building such a development. But, you know, and I will say my neighbor, John Boothroyd, is somebody that I've befriended, and I've gotten to know him, and he's gotten to know my family. And, you know, it's that type of bridge builder, I think, that we need desperately in our times. I think that I am that person that has done a lot to unify our community, not only locally, helping a neighbor like Jonas Carrera, who was pepper sprayed in Northampton. You know, our family was the person that helped him get justice and not have a criminal record. And it's because of our ability to bring people together to fight for our neighbor. He's able to live without a criminal record because we were able to help him fight for his innocence. So that's the type of drive and energy that I hope to bring to you, that could be to support you in the values that you hold. Thank you.
Okay, so could I please get a round of applause?